ESO still won't do this. Why? Alright, let's find out what ZeniMax is not doing.
The Elder Scrolls Online has had a tough year for content, but that doesn't mean that things can't get better. In fact, ESO is still one of the top MMOs on the market today, with an insane 400 week-long streak in Steam Chart's top 100 games. But there's still a lot of work to do and plenty of features we still need to keep players engaged and coming back for more, like harder overland content. Whether you look at level scaling, mob difficulty, enemy AI, or multiple other factors.
Yo, that's actually true. So a couple of days ago, I've returned to ESO after a long time, and I'm participating in the event. And I wanted to see if I'm bad now or not, because I haven't played so much, right? Like I was playing other games a lot. So I went on one of my characters, I made a generic PvE build, and I could solo almost every single world boss. I fought against like 10 plus different world bosses, and the overland bosses, they are so easy. I can solo them all on my character. I'm not even at the CP cap. What am I, like CP 1200 something, 1300 something, something around that, right? I can solo all the overland bosses. They're super easy, even those that have like two-shot mechanics.
Overland and quest enemies in ESO are just too weak, and players nowadays are just too strong. This results in a complete lack of challenge for players with even the most basic builds. For example, Overland world bosses, an activity typically reserved for groups and endgame players in most other MMOs, can be soloed as early as level 10 or level 15 in ESO, and most regular Overland and quest-related enemies can be fought completely naked if you want to. This naturally leads to some problems when it comes to player immersion for most of us when you supposedly are facing off against a Daedric Prince or some other godlike figure in a dramatic conclusion of a questline, and you can just easily prevail with a few light attacks, maybe a few other abilities thrown in.
That is actually so true. You could run a zero sustain build or like a heavy attack build, and all you need to know is like know the mechanics and have some heal over time that's constantly on you. Like healing is still, even though they nerfed it, I feel like healing is still pretty strong. Like if I drop on 30% health or 40% health, what I did against some world bosses from like a single hit of something, I just use like, if I'm on Magicka, like because I'm on my Mag DK most time, I'm using a harness. Like I'm just using my armor skills and stuff. Like I'm using Harness Magicka, and then I'm just healing up. It's so easy. And if you're on stamina, you just permanently use vigor. I feel like they need to make stuff more difficult. Same when it comes to questing. So they make like very beautiful DLCs. We get like very nice zones. I mean, just look at Greymoor, now High Isle. Like there are so many beautiful new areas to explore and quest through. But even the quests are so easy. Like I can pull 10 plus, even 20 plus mobs, and I don't die in ESO. If you pull mobs in certain other games, I give an example like Final Fantasy XIV. If you pull too many mobs, you can actually get in trouble. Even like in WoW, like let's say you pull 20 mobs that are on your level, like in Shadowlands, you are a goner. In ESO, 20 mobs, no problem. While questing, I just walk through every mob, pull them. I turn around, I use 2-3 skills, I wait 3 seconds, everything dead. This is too easy. They need to buff stuff like mobs, even dungeons. Like I can solo every dungeon almost, especially like normal dungeons. Veteran dungeons, maybe some are not able to do solo, but with like one friend, and you don't need a full group.
Now, I asked you guys if you would want a veteran or hard mode option for quests in Overland.
Yes.
And a whopping 83% of you said yes. So why doesn't ZeniMax do this? In my mind, it wouldn't take much to fix this, at least for instance content like quest areas. In cases like this, you don't have to worry about balancing the game with other players at other levels, and could instead just use the existing system that we already have in dungeons, arenas, and trials of setting the instance as normal or veteran, maybe even with some hard mode encounters thrown in for specific bosses.
Yeah.
This way, players can choose the difficulty that they want to experience, maybe even with improved rewards like more loot or better quality loot for harder ranks. In my mind, this would be an easy win for the developers, being a really simple addition to the game that would encourage players to keep playing and exploring. Something else ESO can really improve on is better rewards, specifically things that can be earned in-game. I talked about this in my previous video where we looked at a potential new feature
that you can
called Customize Actions, which will allow players to change out some basic animations for things like harvesting and fast travel with new custom animations and new effects. But according to the developers, at least so far, this new level of customization will only be available for purchase with crowns or through crown crates.
No.
Now, this is another huge missed opportunity where this new level of customization could instead reward players for actually playing the game instead of spending real-world money. Now, from what I've seen, ESO players want more options when it comes.
And that's the same with like mounts. If you look at ESO mounts, like you get them from the crates or from the crown store, or by converting stuff from the crates that you get that you didn't want into those shards and those crystals, and then you just buy it. But if you do like difficult content and stuff, like what I would like to see, but I know they're probably not going to do that because this is going to affect their crown store negatively. But this is something that's, for example, in World of Warcraft. You can do dungeons, and there's like a tiny chance of 1 or 2% with some dungeons to get like a mount if you defeat the last boss. It would be cool if there were actually boss mounts. Even for like specific overland bosses, or like in zones where there are like not so many overland bosses, just like 2 bosses or so. And there's like this tiny chance that you get a mount from a boss. Like we don't have that really in ESO, right? Like I can think of it. Wait, is there even any boss that can reward a mount? I haven't played for years. I just came back, and back in the day I don't remember there were any bosses that drop mounts. But that would be cool if they added this actually, right? Then you can farm certain dungeons, not just for sets, because once you have a set, you're done with the dungeon, right? But what if there's like a mount you're still missing? Then you can do the dungeon over and over again. Yeah, that would be cool actually. But I don't think they're gonna add this, unfortunately. But that gives farmers more reason to farm for something. Like, let's grind this dungeon 100 times, let's get this mount. You know, that would be fun. And then like evenings you can meet up with friends and you can do mount runs.
Comes to earned rewards, even the so-called cosmetic-only rewards like skins and mounts and emotes, because it helps tell a story about their character that makes them
you get
feel
skins
unique.
from dungeons.
I mean, think about this.
Mounts,
as a player, would you prefer
mounts.
to share stories about crazy achievements, completing quest lines, and surviving difficult boss battles, or would you rather share your story about spending $10 extra in the crown store for the latest cosmetic reward? I think the difference here is pretty clear. The set types is another huge need in ESO. When you think about it, ESO has so many sets in the game at this point, particularly 5-piece sets, that builds and theory crafting options are just a bit boring, I think. This is because 5-piece bonuses are usually the best, and you can at most just run 2 5-piece set bonuses at once. Now, I'm not suggesting that ESO completely does away with a 5-piece set system. Please don't do that actually, because then I need to fix every single set on my website. But it would be nice to have more 3-piece sets, 2-piece sets, and even 1-piece set options in the game to really diversify our build options.
This reminds me to back in the day. So I'm a big ESO OG. I started playing around, it was like 2014, just like a couple of months after the game was released actually. And back in the day, there were still, like, there was like best in slot, especially for PvP, agility jewelry, and willpower. I remember having a 5-piece set, a monster set, and willpower, and then you had like the VMA weapons, and this was like best in slot for freaking PvP. And this was so cool because there was a 3-piece set, and I missed this because if you look at monster sets, they're 2-piece. Jewelry sets 3-piece. They need, I think some need some buff. There are like other ones out there, and the same with like willpower. They need maybe some rework, so people actually use that instead of using a back bar 3-piece set in front bar 5-piece set. Because right now I see so many builds that have a 5-piece set permanently, and on one bar you have a 5-piece set, and on the back bar you have like a VMA weapon, right? And then you have your monster set. What I think would be cool is if they had like more 3-piece sets, and maybe like even 2-piece sets or something. Like what if there was a good 2-piece set that you can use like on a weapon, right? And then you can use a 3-piece set on jewelry. And then you have your regular 5-piece set and your monster set. I think this would give you more build options as well. I think they could rework that. And yeah, by the way, guys, if you are new to this channel and you love MMOs, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content.
And yes, I know that we have mythic items now that count for just one set piece.
Yeah,
but the problem with mythic items is you can only use one mythic at a time, which still basically restricts you to the same 2 5-piece set.
And what will you wear with
this?
Big question,
like a one-piece monster set. So personally, I would love to be able to mix and match more pieces of gear sets, 1s, 2s, even 3s to create.
The thing about this legendary eye is like if you get like one of those rings, for example, then you can no longer have a 5-piece double 5-piece set, right? Because you're losing one slot. Like sure, you can do this again with like the front bar thingy, back bar thingy and stuff, but but that's also weird because then you have a 4-piece bonus basically. Like this is so weird, right? Like I know there are like some people that run this where they have like just a 4-piece bonus, then they have this jewelry, the legendary, and then they have like a 5-piece set. But I think that's kind of strange, right? Like this is the thing. Like that's like my issue now also with builds. Like I want to wear one of those, but I'm wearing stuff where, for example, I have like, let's say, Briarheart on stamina. I'm using now because I'm far behind, so I have like Hunting's Rage and Briarheart, and I have Julianus and Mother's Sorrow that I'm currently using for PvE. And I know I'm like not up to date. I need to farm for more sets. There are probably like way stronger builds out there. But my issue is if I use like one of those items, then I have to either sacrifice my Briarheart or my Mother's Sorrow or something. Yeah. There's a big issue with like a lack of 3-piece sets, because if you had like a 3-piece set, you can like easier fit this in, right?
Create more unique builds than we currently have access to. For example, it would be amazing if completing quests in ESO could reward players with unique 1-piece set items, not just the junk 5-piece Overland sets that we have currently. Something I really miss from the single-player test games is completing an epic quest line and getting rewarded with a really unique piece of armor or a unique weapon
like a
that actually means something and can further define my build and my character. There's really no reason why unique weapons and armor like this
we have one drunk in
PvP in the Elder Scrolls Online 2. So here's a big one: new skills, particularly combat skills. Now, we have needed new combat skills in ESO for a long time. Similar to our boredom with 5-piece sets and theory crafting builds, there's a definite feel of, I guess, apathy when it comes to the current skill lines in the Elder Scrolls Online. Something needs to be shaken up here to keep things fresh and interesting. Now, at the very least, like I think a new weapon skill would be a great addition to the game, and it would make a lot of players really, really happy. If we wanted to go with some...
Whoa, they should add pole arms like spears or something. Wow, imagine you get like a new weapon, a spear, pole arm. Wow, this would actually be cool. It would be fitting on a Templar, right? You have like Aedric spear abilities, and then you're running around with the actual spear as your weapon. I think the Templars would be so hyped about this. Yo, we need pole arms. Or imagine you running around with like a big scythe on a freaking necromancer. Like not your actual skill, but an actual scythe. And yeah, there are some looks on like the battle axe, like two-handed axe that look like scythes and stuff, right? But if you imagine you had like an actual scythe, wow, and it's a skill line, and then you have like skills like, I don't know, like maybe you spin around with it and that's like your AoE skill or something.
Something more typical to the Elder Scrolls universe, I think a new magic-based weapon would be a perfect addition.
Like a wand
ESO is still
or
missing
something?
plenty of magic types that we've seen in other games like Skyrim, including illusion magic, alteration magic, conjuration magic, and
illusion
so on.
staff or what?
This could be applied to like a staff or also through something like a handheld book. Many NPCs in the Elder Scrolls Online also dual wield a weapon in one hand while using magic in the other
Two-handed
hand,
weapon
just like
books.
in Skyrim and Oblivion, which would be another amazing addition if they could figure out how to make that work in ESO. Another option to consider would be a new skill line added to classes, or perhaps some additional morphs, like a third morph in some cases. This might be a bit harder to balance, so I don't think it's very likely,
morphs.
but it still would be amazing. And finally, I think something like spellcrafting, where players can create custom skills from a predetermined list of effects and buffs, and also add a ton of new life into...
I don't think this is good custom spells. This will be very hard to balance, because what if there's like a meta where penetration is everything, and you can like add suddenly penetration effects to some skills? Like what if there's like one skill that gives you like minor and one gives you major penetration or something, and you can like reach the cap immediately on a target or something? Wait, is there even a penetration cap? I'm not sure, I would have to check. But you can add like certain secondary effects that if you have like certain skills that have this and this effect, where you do like so much damage that people have no other choice but to use this customized spell, because anything else underperforms. I think it would be impossible to balance, so that's why we can't get those customizable spells. I don't think this is, this would be a big issue.
The ESO without being too taxing on developer resources. Now, I did a complete video on how spellcrafting could possibly work, so I'll have a link up in the corner and down in the description if you want to check that one out. As far as champion points, this was completely reworked just a few years ago, but most players I've talked to realize this system is still far from perfect. And while it does a decent job on balance, making sure champion points are insanely powerful, they do this by restricting us to 4 slotted stars per constellation nowadays. This also has a big downside of promoting less customization and less options for player progression, especially at higher CP ranks. In the current CP system, there's just not that much incentive to max out your rank to 3600. I mean, even at around 1000 CP or so, your fundamental power level is pretty much set at that point, and anything more just kind of doesn't matter. Instead, it would be great if each CP constellation had less of those slotted stars and more passive stars that actually did something useful and different. For one thing, there are just way too many slotted options, which again, we can only use at 4 at a time, so what's the point of these?
Oh yeah, the slottable.
I think changing some of these over to passive stars, like I said, that players can actually benefit from would be great. This is especially true in the green CP tree, for example, where most of these stars are simply convenience-based. I mean, why can I only have 4 conveniences active at a time if I've earned these with unlocking champion points? These don't make me more...
But to be honest, I don't like the champion point system, and I will explain you guys why. So, ESO is it's not like super old, but it has been around for a lot of years, right? Like, it's now at 8 years, right? I think, 8 years. And the problem now is that if a new player comes, they have to catch up so much. When I came back a couple of days ago, I had already over CP 1100 because I've been playing like crazy for many years, and I was already beyond the CP cap back then by 200-300 CP. So I was like all set for the future basically before I went on a long break. And now if a new player comes, they need eternity. I've seen like actually that the game is still pretty popular. So I logged in like 4 days ago for the first time, and I started participating in the event. And I want to farm all that also for housing. I've noticed there are quite many players that are 200 and 400 CP, and they started playing this game like maybe a couple of months ago, because it takes like several months to get to CP 400, depending on how often you play, but even a casual person in less than 1 year can reach CP 400. But the thing is, this takes like months to get there, right? So, whereas if you are like a new player and you need months to get there, and you know then that, okay, maybe if you play like a lot, like let's say you're someone that plays 6-7 hours a day, maybe in a couple of weeks, depending which spot you are, you can almost get to, like maybe CP 800 or something. But then you still have the issue that if you are on a high CP like that, it's not high enough, because there will still be people that have 500-600 CP more and are sitting on, let's say, 1400 CP. Then they are more favored in a group and to be taken to a dungeon than you are with your 800 CP. And you know, to get there, you need like more weeks, maybe even months to grind for that CP. And if there's no event, it's gonna be even way slower. So yeah, this is I think the big problem now with the CP for new players, because it will take a while. Like now, how much CP am I gaining an hour? Maybe 1 or 2 CP? I think I gain like 2 CP an hour right now, and I'm over 1200. So yeah, to max out, it can take a long time for a new player, and that's why I don't like the CP system. Because you're not gonna be able in the first months of your gameplay to do like the end game content with the others that are mixed.
More powerful in combat, they're not overpowered in PvP scenarios. So ideally, I should be able to use more than 4 of these at a time, and so switching some of these to passive bonuses would be an easy solution that would add a ton more customization, a ton more versatility to our builds, and more options for progression, which I think players at high CP ranks are really asking for. I did mention PvP, and this list would not be complete without some PvP discussion. I personally do enjoy PvPing on occasion, particularly in Battlegrounds. There hasn't been a new map or a new mode for Battlegrounds in years. When Battlegrounds was released, this seemed like a great option to extend the life of PvP because it would be simple to just add in new maps, new modes every few patches to keep things fresh. So why haven't they done this? Taking this a step further, I think custom matches, better rewards would be another great option, as would larger matches, maybe 10v10 Battlegrounds or 20v20, please. But of course on larger maps. The options here are literally...
This is my problem I have with PvP. So I want to always go to Zero Deal because I can expect big fights there. But there's just so much lag that I'm tempted to go to Battlegrounds all the time. But then there are like just groups of 4 people and it's super small, the battles, right? Like you sometimes have like 3 enemies, you have like 1 or 2 friends, you just kill them and then you move to, let's say, a flag or something, or you collect something there, you have to hold the ball for some time. Like there are some fun game modes and stuff in Battlegrounds and I do like them, but I do find the battles are way too small, too few people. Like I want to see a Battleground where there are at least 20 people present at a time or more. I think this would be way more fun.
Endless, and I know PvP players have been begging for some updates, so I would love to see this very soon.
Like the group's at least
but if
5
there's just one thing
players,
that I hope comes to
good.
ESO next year, that would be a new class.
Not 4,
it's
but
been
like 5
3
or
years
6.
since the latest class was released in 2019 with the Necromancer, and that feels like so long ago, doesn't it? I mean, there's so many great options available that could add value to the game. Even if we only look at like the classic Elder Scrolls style classes from previous games, like Oblivion and Morrowind, this might include, you know, things like the Bard or a Monk class, maybe a Barbarian or a Spellblade. There's lots of directions they could go with this, and I still believe that a new class is by far the biggest opportunity ESO has to really attract new and old players alike and breathe some new life back into the game. But what do you guys think? Let me know your #1 missing feature down in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to crush that like button so YouTube knows to share this with other players. Hit that subscribe for more Elder Scrolls Online content, and thanks again for watching.
Yeah, that's true what he said about, like, I totally agree, especially about the PvE part. It's way too easy. Like, I have not any struggle to kill Overland bosses. To me, they are way too easy. Like, I'm not at CP cap yet. I haven't played for eternity. I'm just using a very basic PvE setup. Like I said, I'm using stuff with Julianos and Huntings, depending on if I play on Magica or Stamina. I'm not using any of the trial sets. My gear's not even fully golden yet. And I have not a hard time defeating Overland bosses solo. Like right now, I have to kill every day at least 1 Overland boss anyway because of the event. And sometimes I even kill 2 or 3 in a day on one of my characters. And it is crazy how easy it is. It doesn't matter if I'm in Deshan, if I'm in Greenshade, if I'm in freaking Stormhaven. Like anywhere, the world bosses, like the Overland bosses, are way too easy. And when it comes to PvP, I'm surprised that after all those years, they still haven't figured out how to do something about the lag. Or give us zones that are small, that are bigger than Battlegrounds, but smaller than Zero Deal, where there are like literally teams of not 4, but like at least 5 or 6 players, like new modes maybe, and teams come out with 4, like maybe 6 players. I think that would be way better, so you have a bit bigger PvP fights and not the small ones you have in Battlegrounds, and without lag. Because I've noticed it only lags when there's like a lot of players, like maybe 30 or more in one area. But if there's like just 15 or 20 players, it's usually still fine. But then you have to find good areas and you need to be online at a certain time. And it's just usually a small period of the day, like in Zero Deal. Or you have to go to the campaign that's underpopulated and hope that there's a group of 10 plus people somewhere. But yeah, I wonder what the future will be for ESO. It's definitely a still very popular game, but you can't really see this because it's not really that popular on Twitch. And I think one of the reasons why ESO is not so popular on Twitch is also because it's not as competitive as it used to be. Like on Twitch, ESO was pretty big because of PvP, because back in the day PvP was less laggy. It was still lagging, but it was less laggy, and I guess that's because they kept adding more skills and more classes and stuff, and they reworked a lot. So maybe now there's like more data, so it lags more. That's my opinion. And back in the day, like solo PvP was easier, so people would watch like streamers that can like 1vx and stuff. But yeah, each time I log in, I see quite many players. So yeah. I wonder if they ever do something like hard mode overland bosses. That would be actually cool if you can like turn this on somehow. Like you walk to an overland boss and then you have the option to switch something on. And then maybe you get like extra reward. Like maybe cosmetics or mounts would be cool. But yeah, guys, that's it for today's video. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. I wish everyone a wonderful day. I will see you guys next time.